Hi guys, welcome to another Show and Tell Tech. I'm Mike. This is Devin.
And welcome to our podcast today. We've got a couple of great little items today. I hope you're going to enjoy. Was I kicking it off today, Mike?
Yeah, I think you are. Let's go with
You
you
went
today.
first last time, didn't you?
Yeah.
Well, I'll go first this time. We're just going to jump right into it. We don't have really anything else going on at the moment, so let's get right into it. So what I brought today is this little board here. This is called the Retrotink 2X. And what this is a little single board, not in the sense as like the Raspberry Pi, but if you notice, it's got all these video and audio ends. Then on this side, we've got a mini HDMI out and a micro USB port for power. And basically what this is for is retro gaming, essentially, is what this is for.
Heck yeah.
We kind of talked about a little bit of retro gaming on the Raspberry Pi last week, and I thought this was a great segue kind of into that, because what if you didn't want to, bother getting the Raspberry Pi 4, setting it up, learning a little bit of Linux with it, getting all your game ROMs moved over and whatnot, and this, may be a lot simpler if you've already own an old console and have a back catalog of old games laying around.
Right. Seemingly a plug and play option.
Exactly. You see a lot of those marketed, cables that convert the
Right.
signal, to a digital signal. But if you've ever tried one of those, especially one of the cheaper ones, or even like just an HDMI converter that you can pick up at Walmart,
Right.
you get a really, really blurry signal onto like a modern TV.
Yeah, it almost loses a little bit of information in translation and doesn't make it the most quality gaming experience.
Right. Now, and that's where this comes in. This was not the cheapest option, if we're talking about just quick HDMI converters or anything
Right.
like that. This comes in at about $100. It's $100.
Okay.
This is an older version, actually. I've had it for a couple of years. They've got a newer, updated version with a nice 3D printed case. It actually looks a little more presentable.
Gotcha.
But this works fine as is.
Absolutely.
But basically, what it does is takes that old 240p signal coming out of your Super Nintendo, your NES, your PlayStation 1,
Sega Genesis.
right, PlayStation 2, even like the 480i signals.
Okay, yeah.
And it'll take that signal and make it a 240p signal and line double it up to 480p.
Nice.
That way, because your modern TV, like your HDMI TV, will accept that 480p signal. A lot of the times, they don't handle that 240p because it's such a low resolution. And this does it with almost no latency. There is latency, don't get me wrong, but it's so low you really don't even notice it. So it's really great, and it's got multiple options here. You've got your standard just composite video, that yellow, white, and red cable.
Right.
That if you're old enough, you remember. You know what we're talking about. And it's got an S-video input. You didn't really see that very often.
Yeah, that wasn't a big standard back then.
It has really good video quality though on that cable, and you can find S-video cables for a lot of those systems.
Yeah.
They some retro focused gaming companies will still put those out. And then we also have your component video signal. So you get your 4 videos and then your audio.
Right.
And it'll convert it all over to that 480p signal and put you out a digital output just into a standard HDMI plug.
Awesome.
And it's got a couple of little features on here too. There is a kind of just a standard pass through where it'll still convert it to that 480p signal, but just kind of pass it through, not do anything else to it.
Okay.
It does have a smoothing option, which kind of cleans up the pixels, kind of gives it that smoother look.
Okay.
It's a very, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah,
Kind of thing.
yeah,
You just like that retro pixel look
right.
real
Some
well.
people just are, looking for the nostalgia and want that very retro look instead of, a super clean updated thing.
Right. And it can, if I remember right, I think it can add a scan line option. I didn't use that very often, so I don't remember exactly if it did that or not.
Yeah,
But it's
I like my retro, nostalgia experiences, but Scanline is definitely not something that I miss at all.
right. Well, when you think about it, when you had the your older CRT TVs, yeah, it had the scan lines, but you didn't notice them.
Right, because I mean that was normal at the time,
Right, it was just so normal. You're like, oh, okay, it looked like a TV.
Exactly.
So, but this is a great little thing. I use this with my my Sega Dreamcast and my PS2, and I had nothing but great results out of it. I mean, it looked great, on my big 55-inch TV in the living room. And it was just I think a great purchase. Like I said, it's $100, but as it's not that much more than like a $20 or $30 HDMI converter that's going to just give you a crap signal in my opinion.
Right.
But it's also a lot cheaper than some of the other analog to digital video converters that are out there that people use, and I thought it was a great buy.
Well, I'm definitely into it. I mean, like we were talking last time with the Raspberry Pi, anything that you can kind of just, it's got more cables involved, but anything you can just kind of take and go with you. You know, you could go over to your friend's house that's got an old retro gen console, Sega, Nintendo, whatever, and plug it up, go to work with a little better picture and, working on TV. Now, one thing is, of course, just a mention on this, coming from experience in selling some of the older systems in the game store, is if you're looking at like with the original NES with Duck Hunt and stuff like that, a lot of those the zapper guns, and like Maximum Force, you could get that on like PlayStation and stuff like that. A lot of those old guns that worked off like the reflectiveness of the old CRT TVs, those won't work quite properly with modern day TVs.
Right. They actually have I don't remember who was doing it, but there was an updated. Somebody has made a new one that actually works with your modern TV.
Right. Yes, I have seen those. Absolutely. Now, do they actually? One thing I don't know is, do they actually plug into the old system?
Oh yeah. They use the same hookup and everything. It just plugs right in. It's just designed to work with your modern LCD TV.
Cool. All right.
So, but yeah, I've had a lot of good fun with this, playing some of those older games, and showing them to my kids.
Absolutely.
And it's just great to get the Sega Dreamcast out.
Yeah, I know that was such an underrated system.
Exactly.
Oh, I loved Sega Dreamcast.
Had a lot of Tony Hawk. I played Tony Hawk first on the Dreamcast.
Right.
I didn't play it on PlayStation like probably a lot of people did. I played it on Dreamcast first, and man, it was just such a great game. And the first Sonic Adventure game.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah, it's classic Sonic game in my opinion.
The Sega Dreamcast, really, I mean, it got such a bad rap that it wasn't marketed as properly by Sega as the PlayStation.
It was ahead of its time.
It was definitely ahead of its time. I mean, it was really my go-to pick versus the PlayStation, but because of the lack of marketing and not showcasing it as properly as PlayStation and Sony did, it kind of got left to the side. But it was definitely, I mean, it was one of the first ones that had online play capability built into it. It was definitely ahead of its time in many aspects.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother topic.
Of course.
That's another day. I may have to bring my Sega Dreamcast in one day. Show that off. But yeah, got any other questions about that?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. But hey, if any of you guys have some questions about this or wonder about some of the capabilities or features, let us know down in the comments. We'd be glad to take some questions and maybe even do a separate video section, answering some questions about stuff. We'd be glad to do stuff like that.
We could always do like a Q&A video one day.
Absolutely.
If we ever, actually get comments.
Of course.
It takes people, viewing your videos and commenting on it to actually get questions in the
Indeed.
comments.
But hey,
But
we'll get there
one day. But yeah, I'll definitely I'll make sure to put a link to the updated version in the description as well, so you can check that out. And yeah, Retrotink 2X.
Retrotink 2X.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna have to definitely shell out the money and get one of those along with a Raspberry Pi system. Those are some cool little, microchips that you brought in the past couple times.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just amazing what people can just make.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, this is just if I remember, I was just a guy who made this, then sourced it with a company to print some of this stuff up, and then started selling them.
Yeah, I mean, there's even online websites now that you can go to, design your little chipset that you want and what the features are supposed to do. So, theoretically, it's your design.
Right.
And then they just print the chipset off to you and ship it to you. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do out there. If you've got some engineering, technology, engineering background, stuff like that.
Right. Definitely not my background.
No, not mine either. But, just to think how far we've come, again, like I said last time, with having these huge boards that you have to take up a bunch of space with, now down to these smaller chipsets that you can do virtually so many things with. So
right.
It's pretty cool.
So I gotta ask, Mike.
Yeah.
What's with all the memory cards on the desk?
Okay. All right. So today, what I'm talking about is not specifically one type of memory, but in general, solid state devices themselves.
Gotcha.
So just a quick little tip, or a quick little tidbit, so to speak. Solid state memory has actually was theorized in 1971.
Oh yeah, it's actually been around for a long time.
Yeah, and the first one was released at $400,000 in 1991 to compete with IBM. To literally go 7 times faster than any, hardware that IBM had out at the time. Now, you think nowadays $400,000 is a big chunk of change for just, a solid state device. But It's been around since 1991. So a cool little history behind that. So solid state is defined as, the actual definition of it, is any memory device that can transfer and hold information that has no mechanical working parts and only transmits the data through electric and micro electronics. So your different types of things you have, of course, is your solid state drive. You've got your micro SDs, and of course, some of the original mainstream, what was marketed to what you've got the civilian market. Was your
thumb drive.
Thumb drives.
Or people was like, hey, you got a flash drive, and people got. I mean, that's what it is. It's a flash NAND module.
Exactly. And so,
I think what's cool, before you keep going real quick, is you've got 3 different kinds of solid state memory, products there, but it's literally all flash NAND.
Absolutely.
It's just the capabilities of it's just a different connector essentially.
Exactly.
Minus some more.
Right.
Stuff,
I mean,
obviously.
Specifically wise, there's more things depending on what you want to do. If you want to store a mass amount of information, like in a desktop, you've got your solid state drives. If you're just carrying around some information, you want to switch between your office and home office, well, that's what this is for. And it all has different read speeds depending on what you want to do with it.
Right. And that comes back down to that interface.
Absolutely. Now, one of the interesting things that I found when I was looking at some cool newer stuff is that Intel is actually not really developing a new type, but developing a new form factor in which it's called, which don't quote me on this, I'll have to go back and look at it. I'll link it down in the video. 3DX.
The Crosspoint stuff?
Yeah, Crosspoint, 3DX Crosspoint.
They actually dropped that.
They already dropped it? Okay.
They dropped it because they were doing I was actually reading about this not too long ago because it was actually in the headlines because it was co-developed with Micron.
Yeah.
That 3D Crosspoint memory. But Intel kind of backed out on that and started kind of doing their own thing with their new Optane memory modules.
Right, yeah.
And Micron recently just said they were not going to be developing it anymore either.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's funny you brought that up because, like I said, I just remember seeing a headline about that the other day.
But and the reason why I was looking at that is because kind of we're at a point now, these standard SSDs have been out for so long now, and they're getting bigger and bigger in the amount of information that they're actually putting out on the commercial market. You can get up to a 14 terabyte SSD now if you've got the money for it. So we're kind of coming into that space to where I would say in another, say, 4 to 5 years, we're going to have some type of new form factor out there that's going to be able to probably double the space of what we're used to now, as well as maybe double to triple the speeds that we're going to see. So it's kind of an interesting area to, if you're interested in that stuff, do some research and kind of look around. I think we're kind of in that area now where it's probably going to make another jump here pretty soon.
Oh, yeah. Well, and what's cool about that is, too, like, all these form factors, they're going to still stay around too with the other ones. Because look at your standard spinning hard drive.
Yeah, I'm still around.
Exactly. I just seen a thing not too long ago. I believe of a Seagate. They're going to have 100 terabyte drives.
Yeah.
Within the next 10 years.
Yeah, for a lot of their server storage issues and things like that.
Even consumer grade.
Absolutely.
So, but kind of on the topic of your solid state memory here, there's one of them you don't have here. You've got your SD, you got your flash, you got your
I figured you were going to go here.
You got your SATA, SSD, which is kind of your last gen standard. What your hard drive still plugs into that interface there. So you've got the new NVMe storages, which use the PCI Express interface, which is what your graphics card, or if you got like an add-on Thunderbolt card or anything like that, that's that slot that plugs into. That's your PCI Express.
And there's actually there's a lot of boards coming out now that are actually having dedicated flip-up NVMe PCI Express ports, so that you can specifically, if you wanted to move away from this, you can specifically move into putting those into your system without taking up, a dedicated
that's that
PCI.
That M.2 form factor.
Right.
That's what that is.
Right.
And what's ridiculous about that? So your SATA 3 port that your basic hard drive or anything plugs into, that caps out at about 600 megabytes per second.
Around, yeah.
Now on these PCI Express ones, I've got recently did an upgrade when I was kind of upgrading my computer and whatnot in my new build. I put a Gen 4 NVMe drive into mine.
Okay.
And we're talking like 5,000 megabyte read speeds.
Yeah, I mean the speed is completely superior.
I mean that is just putting this bad boy to shame.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Really
now don't get me wrong. This is great. Like if you've got like an old laptop, let's say like an old laptop that's like 5 or 6 years old, that's still got a spinning, hard drive disk in it, and you want to something snappier and faster, but you don't want to buy a whole new laptop.
Right.
Put one of these in it.
Absolutely.
It'll be night and day, I promise you.
Yeah.
Night and day difference. And you can get like a 500 gigabyte one of these, which is more than enough usually for most people. $100 or less.
Right. And one of the, going into what you were talking about there, one of the main things a lot of people went to doing, because the speeds are night and day, even between this and the old regular HDD, is putting your, getting the smaller one, like 250 gigs, 500 gigs, and putting your Windows operating system, or, potentially your Linux operating system onto it. And like the speed that the responsiveness that you will notice just from putting it on a standard or on a solid state drive is absolutely amazing. I mean, your boot up times will more than double. Your boot up times will go down more than double.
Right.
The responsiveness of opening an application and running the application will go down just amazingly. It's really cool technology to do stuff like that with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the cons of it is, of course, because solid state memory is electronic only and it doesn't have, major moving parts, you start to get a degradation of that memory in things in a smaller time frame than you do like a traditional HDD.
Right. But there's a flip side of that. One, yeah, it's going to degrade over time, but we're talking years and years and years.
Well, it depends on what you're doing with it.
Well,
It really does
I
depend
know,
on what you're
I
doing
know,
with it.
but I
So
mean,
if you're the standard, user that's just throwing it in your desktop, yeah, it's going to be years, years, years. Now, if you're talking about, doing like a lot of information moving where you're doing like server stuff, corporate sort of things where you're moving a lot of information every day, it's going to degrade a lot faster
well, right.
because they have a maximum amount of writes on them, of
Mhm.
course, that they're rated for their lifespan. That doesn't mean that they will go down in those lifetimes, but the testing, of course, is built to rate it at that because over most of the products, that's around when it starts kind of
Right.
losing memory.
But I mean, even like I know on like the Samsung Drive, if I'm not mistaken, it's between a 3 and 5 year warranty.
Right. Yeah.
Because they're almost guaranteeing that you're not going to start seeing any speed degradation
Right.
between that
Absolutely.
time. So I mean, you're talking, like I said, it's still 5 years
Yeah.
minimum. And I've had a couple drives for. I bought in pretty early on the solid state drives.
Yeah.
I've had a couple for like 10 years now, and still golden.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
And I'm not trying to say that to scare people. I'm just saying,
right,
con wise, it is technically compared to the traditional components. Now, what you have with the HDDs is, a lot of those manufactured components, which are, they're still rated at, years. I had a HDD in my first system, my first computer system, that lasted like 15 years.
right, right.
But some of those mechanical components, sometimes if the motor gets gunked up or, dies, you've got to replace that. You can still salvage your data and everything, but you have to replace that.
Right. Now, speaking of, pros and cons with back to that pro side of it, that
Still good.
would have killed your regular hard drive.
Absolutely. This right here, I could literally sit here all day. Now, we don't suggest you do this, but I could sit right here, all this. I could chunk this around this room all day, plug it up, and literally 99 times out of 100, it's still going to work properly.
Right.
As long as one of the pieces of the chips didn't break off in there or something like that,
Right.
it's still going to read just fine, which was one of the major reasons why a lot of form factors moved to using solid state stuff is because it is so durable. It doesn't have moving parts in it that can gunk up like I was talking about with traditional HDDs. Doesn't have a motor, doesn't have anything like that. The only thing it's got in there is a laser that reads some of the information, which has no motor to it.
Right.
And moves that information back and forth, in whatever form factor you have it hooked up to your device with.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, great stuff. I highly, highly recommend, moving to one of those, especially in like an older laptop for an upgrade,
Oh, yeah.
or if you're building one. Price wise, it's almost to the point where you can just go full solid state.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, like we were talking about just about 3-4 years ago when I actually bought a couple solid state drives to upgrade my own system, you were looking at a 500 gig being around $250. And I've got a 2 terabyte over there, and that thing was like $630.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's moved to where this right here, 500 gig, is literally, I was looking at it earlier, it's like right at $80 to $100.
Oh, yeah.
And your 2 gig is now around the
2 terabyte?
the 2 terabyte, my bad. 2 terabyte is right at around, depending on what manufacturer you go with, $200 to $250.
Right.
So, I mean, more than double in price because so much more storage has come out with these, and now those have taken that upper price point.
Right, right. But don't get me wrong, like if you still got like super like backlogs, like if you're doing like a media server for your movie collection or anything like that, a standard hard drive is still the way to go, and you can combine the two.
Right, you can combine the two by taking one at one. They actually make what's called hybrid drives now that have solid state technology on it to help with the read write times, but it also combines the higher storage capability of some of the older drives too.
Right, right. Or if you're just building a new system, you could just get a smaller SSD, put your operating system and a couple frequently used programs on it,
Yep.
and then have your other hard drive just plugged in. Just use it for your mass storage for everything
Right.
else.
Absolutely.
So
there's a lot of cool options you can go with. And one of the cool things that I was looking at, kind of going back into it, but the other day, like we were talking about with the M.2 form factor out now, there's actually some motherboards that have the software in place now to where they have 2 dedicated M.2 storage areas for those, and you can actually set up a RAID between the 2 M.2s.
Oh yeah.
So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. I know my board's got 3 M.2
Nice
slots on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, even your cheaper boards in like the last year or two got at least one. So it's great stuff. I highly recommend it. So cool, great stuff, Mike. I'm glad that was a good talking point today.
Well, thank you.
So, got anything else today?
No, not that I can think of. You got anything?
Nope. I think we should wrap it up because here comes the train.
Sounds like a good idea. Maybe even do a little outro to cut into this so you don't hear the train.
Yeah. So instead of the train, make sure you like, hit subscribe, and hit that little notification bell, not
Definitely
the train
hit
horn.
the notification bell. That feeds that YouTube algorithm, helps our channel out, helps us bring you more content, create new content, maybe in the future.
Right. And I believe we'll just go with that today.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for tuning in to Show and Tell Tech. I'm Mike. This is Devin. And as always, guys, hope y'all have a great day, and peace.
Take it easy.